Hey guys, good afternoon. Today we're going to do a lesson in writing about how to write a really strong hook that's going to make your reader not be able to put your story down and make them keep reading. So you need to have your notebook out. Here comes some more people joining us. Great. Need to have out your writer's notebook, or if you're writing on the computer, you need to make sure that you have opened up your Google Doc that you're writing your story on. And make sure you're at a point where you can continue writing, because during this lesson, we're going to do some writing. So you guys at home who aren't here right now, make sure that you get out your writer's notebook and a Google Doc, whatever you're writing on, and get started writing. By now, it's Wednesday. We started writing this story sort of last week and at lunchtime. But for today, you need to, not lunchtime, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So today's Wednesday. You should be getting to about halfway point in your story. You should have built the start, sort of talked about what happened in between, and be getting to the part of your story where you're really building up to the heart of the story. We're going to take a break from that, though, and go back to the beginning of the story and talk about hooks. Hooks are ways to start a story. And the truth is, expert writers have got some tricks of ways to start a story that make it so readers just can't put the story down, which is what we want. So I'm going to center my screen, spotlight it for everyone. Okay. And I've got my writer's notebook handy. I've got my pen handy, and I've got my story ready that I've been working on. And I'm going to put my mind into how to begin a story. There are a lot of great ways to begin a story, but whatever you do with your story, what you want that first sentence or two to do, which is what your hook is the first few sentences, is you want it to take the reader from ho-hum, I'm picking up a boring book and I'm just going to read it, to being in the story right away. You want to get them in the story. One trick to that is to use sounds. So you give them a sound that's going to make them go right into the story. And actually, that's how I started writing my story, is I started it with a sound. So I said, ah, I sighed as I sank back into the cool leather couch. In this book, Cheyenne Again, they also started with a sound. One day he comes, the man who counts, and says, a boy, age 10, he has to go. So they not only started with a sound, they started with some dialogue. So I'd like you now to go to your story, and I would like you to turn to a clean page. So this was my other page. And I'd like you to think of a sound that could have started your story. So if your story is about a roller coaster, it could be clink, clink, clink. I could hear the mechanical part of the roller coaster as it climbed up and up and up. Or maybe your story starts early in the morning when you first wake up and you hear the birds singing. So you're like, tweet, tweet, I heard the birds singing outside my window and remembered today was the day, right? Take a minute and write a start to your story that could be a sound start. Something with a sound. So we are working on our stories, friends. I'm going to pause for a minute while people write. Your job right now is to take about a minute or two and practice writing a start to your story that would start with a sound that would make the reader immediately be able to hear the story. Does anybody else have a thing they want to share? I know I just shared his. He started with crunch, crunch, crunch. I chowed down on the most crunchy, delicious potato chip. And when he does that, the sound, it immediately makes your reader right there listening. Is there anybody else who could share for us this morning the start of their story with a sound? I rewrote my story. I had originally started it sitting on the couch, but now I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I heard my brother, Mike, stomp into the room. Okay. All right. That isn't the only way to start a story. That's one way to write a hook in the story. Another way is to start with a question. Have you ever read a book that's like, have you ever? Or would you want to be? And when it starts like that, it invites the reader to consider the topic immediately. This book's one of those books. It says, have you filled a bucket today? So instead of just reading the story like you're not really interested, if you start with a question, then your reader immediately is asking themselves that question and getting involved. Have I filled a bucket today? I don't know. Let me see how I could start my story with a question. Have you ever had one of those days that you thought was going to be perfect, but then it didn't work out that way? I think that's what I'm going to write is a question right now. Have you ever had one of those days? And by asking that question, my readers are immediately thinking back to the days they've had that didn't go the way they planned. Have you ever had one of those days you thought would be perfect, but it didn't work out? So you can start out kind of talking directly to your reader. What question could you ask at the start of your story right now that would draw people into your story? Have you ever lost a pet? Have you ever had a fight with your sister? Kainoa. Have you ever been to Disneyland? Everybody should be typing right now or writing. I should see your fingers moving. You're asking a question that's going to draw your reader in and make them involved in your story by asking a question. You're rewriting the start of your story with a question. Who's got a question to share? Oh, here, I see that somebody put in the chat. I won't say who. A sound one. As I was going to sleep, I heard a loud punch on my window, constantly knocking hard. Knock, knock, knock. Nice. Excellent. Who's got a question for us? Who's thought of a question to start their story? Jack, Bree, Evie, have you got a question that could start your story? Amadi?
Have you ever been in a fight before?
Have you ever been in a fight before? Now, immediately the reader's wondering, yeah, Christian, what's your question?
Have you ever been on a trip?
Have you ever been on a trip? Now, people are, instead of just reading your story like ho-hum, they're thinking, yeah, I've been on a trip. Let me see if this kid's trip is like mine, right? Okay, great job, you guys. Let's move on. Another way that a lot of people start stories is by using their words to paint a picture so that the reader can see where they are. I call it starting with a setting, a picture or a setting. Close your eyes and just listen to this and see if you can picture it. The night was dark. Cricket song filled the air. A woman hid outside a cabin. She whistled a song called Go Down Moses. Inside the cabin, the slaves knew that Harriet Tubman had come to lead her people out of slavery. Can you see that scene? So this author did a really nice job of painting a picture with words. This author of The Wall did the same thing. Listen to how this one starts. This is the wall, my grandfather's wall. It is long and smooth and holds hundreds of names. On it are the names of those killed in a war long, long ago. Where is Grandpa's name? I ask. You can picture the boy with his father standing there at the wall. Fantastic story. I want you to think right now about the start of your story. Go back, and I want you to use your words to paint a little bit of a picture of it. So I'm in my living room, and it's kind of a small room. It's really cozy, and the light comes streaming in through the window. And I think I'm going to start with that. The light, the sunlight came streaming. And it actually was hot sunlight because it was summer. The hot sunlight came streaming through the window as I sunk back in the shadows of the family room couch. Let's see, let me add a little quietness to the scene because I don't hear anything yet, but it was quiet. It was a quiet summer afternoon. And all I could hear was my favorite TV show with Jan saying, she always complained about her sister, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Okay, I'm putting in some sounds and description. You should be writing a description of the start of your story so that you paint a picture with your words. Right now, you should be writing the start of your story to paint a picture with your words. I know that takes a while, but you should be typing or writing as fast as your hands can go. Everyone working on your story. If you work on it a little bit each day, it'll definitely be done next week. And you should have more written than you've ever written before. So everybody's writing. Okay, hopefully you've written a really nice description that really makes it so that your reader can see your story right from the start. That's a great way to hook your reader into the story. The last technique that I'm going to teach you today on a story, and I might have mentioned it to you when you wrote your first story, is a really sneaky technique that authors often do that makes you want to keep reading because they give you a hint at trouble to come. They say something in their first couple of sentences that's sort of confusing, but it also just makes you really curious and you want to find out what's going on. It might be something like, I woke up that day thinking it was going to be an ordinary day, and you know that it's not going to be an ordinary day. Or little did I know that morning what would happen later. Or have you ever woken up and had a tiger sitting in your room? Something like that. This author, Kate DiCamillo, in The Tiger Rising. Did anybody read this book with their teacher last year? This is a big 4th grade book. No, nobody? Oh, it's such a wonderful story. Let's listen to how this writer starts her story and see if it makes you want to keep reading. First sentence. That morning, after he discovered the tiger, Rob went and stood under the Kentucky Star Motel sign and waited for the school bus, just like it was any other day. Raise your hand if you feel like you want to keep reading.
Me.
So that was a big hint, wasn't it? That he saw a tiger that morning, that he discovered a tiger. So, my friends, a great technique to writing your story is to hint at trouble to come. So in my story, I've started it a lot of ways, but now I've got a hint at trouble to come. What could I say? I could say, I thought I was going to have the afternoon all to myself, but like usual, my brother ruined that. That might be one way to do it, right? Or I might say,
It was a normal day sitting on the couch until
I'm reading your mind. That's a great one. So you could do until ... right? So right now, see if you can write a start to your story that has like a big teaser or hint in it at trouble to come. I'm going to pause for a minute. Everybody write for 2 minutes and let's see what we can come up with. Okay, writers, today and every day when you're writing, you want to think about how to hook your reader and make them have to keep reading your story so that they just are dying to know what happens. There's lots of tricks for doing that. Today, we talked about several of them. One, start with a sound that immediately draws the reader into the story like they're there. Start with a description so that they can see where they are. Also a great way. You could start with a question. So the reader is questioning whether they have had the same experience you've had. Or you could start with a hint at trouble to come. Or like our friend Kainoa said, you could combine a few of those and put them together. But the truth is, writers play with words. They mess around until they have it just the way they want it. We've been working on our same story now. We're starting on our 2nd week. Last week we planned it, came up with an idea. This week on Monday, we started writing it, making sure that we slowed down the action in the heart of the story and really made the reader suffer the way we suffered when we were excited or scared or lonely or sad. And then now we've gone back to the beginning and written a really great hook that draws our reader in. On Friday, I'm going to teach you how to end your story. So right now, keep working on your hook, keep working on your rising tension, on adding those details so that readers can see where they are and see the story like a movie, and the inner thought so that they understand the emotions you went through in the story. And on Friday, we'll work on completing our stories. Okay. For right now, you can go to a breakout room and write for a while.